Good morning. Thanks for getting up on this balmy Chicago morning, and I hope you didn't spend too much time outside. The really good news is the show's 2 weeks later next year, so we'll miss the polar vortex. That's pretty good. How many of you have seen Tom speak before? Groupies, we like it. So you understand, if you know Tom, that we're 5 minutes late. It's just the way it works. So those of you who do know Tom know that he is IHA's trend guru, he hates guru, trend expert. He's been speaking with us for, I think, 9 or 10 years now. And you're in for a treat. And also, the video of this presentation will be available on IHA's website after the show. So what you missed, you can come back and get again. So where'd you go, Tom? Tom Mirable.
Hi. Ooh, shoot. I may lose my voice to this, so if I do, I'm going to move to a handheld. But I never come up this way, and I was just in Las Vegas talking there, and I tripped. I tripped and went flying across the stage. When I finally caught myself, everybody started clapping. It was so nice. I always start with an embarrassing story. It's very easy this year because the best one of the year happened yesterday. It's actually something that's happened once before. Those of you who know me know I have a horrible sweet tooth. I can never stop eating sweet things. I always like, before I go to bed, first thing in the morning, it's always like something sweet. And here, this is the only place in the country where I can find something called Bridge Mix, which I actually had some in my pocket before. Anybody know what Bridge Mix is? Okay, so it's like this amazing stuff. It's like candy balls covered with chocolate almonds and stuff like your grandmother used to play bridge with, and you know. So I took a bag of it to bed 2 nights ago, and I fell asleep on it. And the bag was open. So when I got up in the morning, I looked down, and it looked like, well, you can guess what it looked like. All the chocolate was melted all over the bed, and little like fruits and nuts, and it looked like I had a really bad accident. So I had to leave the cleaning lady a note saying, I swear it's chocolate, because I didn't want her to freak out right away. And I took a picture, which I was going to put in here, but I was like, no, it's too much. Okay. So Top Trends 2019, something a little bit different this year. Hey, Catherine. We're going to talk about top trends like we always do. We're going to start off with sort of the generational thing, because the generational relevance is like my big thing, and I think that it's important to sort of stay in touch with that. But one of the things that I think differs this year from other years, and one of the things that I want you to sort of keep in mind, actually aligns really well with the changes that you're hearing about with the IHA and the Inspired Home Show, and how we're changing the name of it and all that. And it's really about the fact that the consumer's in control now. So it's important, you know, we're constantly sort of talking to each other about what are other people doing, what's the competition doing, what's retail doing, but at the end of the day, the responsiveness to what the consumer wants and how they see themselves and how we can help create them is really what's important. And we are moving into a consumer-centric period of retail and of service. And so that means that, like I always say, we've got to stop looking at objects, start looking at what those objects deliver instead. Some just basic facts about what's going on with generations. There are still things that are common threads that affect all generations that for our industry are particularly important. In part, the fact that we're always going to struggle, especially in softer economies, we're going to struggle with people not wanting to cook at home. Cooking at home is, in some ways, more expensive. It's always less expensive to eat in a less healthy way. It's less expensive to eat fast food. But now, with the sort of polarization of the market, the shrinking middle, we've got more people eating out at better restaurants as well. So that's something else that we're competing with. Because time and experience are value, people are wanting to experience more outdoors. And something that trendwatching.com coined a phrase a few years ago called inspiriencing. And that's that idea of bringing the outside experiences that you have at restaurants and bars and things like that into your home. Constantly looking at how we can create experiences for consumers is really important. 53% of breakfast occasions are eaten alone, 44% of lunches, more singles are working at their desk, busy family schedules. So all of these things, when you look at facts like that, I always say, look at the fact and think of the product. Because when we see eating on television, when we see breakfast eating, almost invariably, only recently have we been seeing commercials where like the kids are running out the door with shoving stuff in their bags, Jif peanut butter or whatever. But it's usually pictured as a family thing, and it's really not very much, breakfast in particular. Snacking. I have separate data on snacking. I'm happy to send it to you. We've done a lot of research on it. Snacking is very, very important. Some major retailers that I'm working with right now are focused on that. And the reason for it is this. Most Americans snack 5 times a day. Millennials actually replace, on average, about 20% of them replace 1 meal a day with 2 snacks. So keeping that, how are we going to keep that healthy? But when you look at America's favorite snacks, they're all unhealthy things. Chips and fried foods and things like that. So it's a gap that we're looking to try to sort of fill. So let's look at the generations. We wanted to talk about generational independence. It's like we always say, we've been looking for years at who makes the purchase decision, who has the money. And one of the things that we have to get used to is really blurring lines in that area. So this generational interdependence, grandparents are helping raise grandkids, so they're an influencer in that. They are watching television with grandkids, helping them sort through ads and what's real and what's not. Kids are taking care of aging parents. Kids of boomers are taking care of their parents in home. They're the reemergence of the extended family. So they're not, boomers are very healthy, and so they're moving in with their kids, creating more extended homes. Parents are helping adult kids financially. On average, in the US right now, 27% of college graduates get some kind of financial help from their boomer parents and Gen X parents. Kids are influencing family decisions. They're shopping all together as a group. It's become a social thing again. Multi-generational workforce. In other words, you've got multiple people, not just both parents, which is more of a sort of boomer Gen X thing. Now you've got parents and kids all running off to work in the morning. Co-living developments. Almost a quarter of baby boomers' kids move back in after college for an average of about 3.5 years now. So that means that, and willingly, it's sort of a foregone conclusion, just help them save money for a home and to buy a place of their own. And that means more multi-generational households. Treating friends as family. We've talked about Friendsgiving and all of that, which is very interesting because it's a great way to avoid your family during those horrible holidays. But this idea of moving in with friends after school instead of moving back with your family as an alternate. I think that one of the things and family is friends. I was reading a study the other day by Nielsen, and they were talking about how millennial women, more than 70% of millennial women consider their mother one of their 2 best friends. Very unusual. I mean, so these are very tight relationships, and the influence they have on each other on what they buy in terms of housewares is very strong. And of course, strangers as influencers, which is what you're seeing online, people who normally are complete strangers to you, but they're writing the reviews that you depend on to make purchases. We wanted to just sort of look at what makes each generation distinct, okay? So if we look at the generation, what are they defined by? What are they known for? Contribution, how do they look at shopping? Gen Z, social media, known for mobility. Their contribution is diversity, the most diverse generation, racially speaking, than any other generation. They think of shopping as anywhere. Millennials, technology, urbanism, personalization, omni-channel shopping. Gen X, we're really defined by the recession more than anything else. They are just sort of recapturing the last bits of what was lost during the last recession. Their contribution is strong advances in education, and they really developed and refined mall culture. And then boomers, affluence, suburbanism, the emergence and solidification of the two-income family, and big box retail. Finally, seniors. Right now, there are big depression issues with seniors. Frugality is a consideration for them. Their contribution to retail was really mass market, and they are returning now to shopping local, a lot of that. I want to say one more time, I don't want you to think that we're ignoring seniors in here. Seniors are very important, but understand that right now, on average, seniors only spend about 3% of their income on what we would consider housewares. A lot of those decisions and the money that goes into them are deferred to boomer generations. They'll give the money and help make contributions to that. What are their ages? Just again, to sort of recap. When we talk about Gen Z, 11 to 22-year-olds, right now there are really not a lot of homeowners or renters. 46% of them eat out once a week. Millennials, 63% renters, 37% homeowners, which is great. Gen X, 44 to 53 years old, 41 million people in the US, 59% of homeowners, 41% of renters, and 44% of them eat out once a week. And then baby boomers, 54 to 74 years old, 72% of them are homeowners, 28% are renters, and 29% eat out once a week. And then finally, seniors. But it's just good to sort of have in your head, what percent of the population are these people? Am I selling to them? Should I be targeting them? And if I am targeting them, how old are they and how many times are they cooking a week? We also really wanted to talk, I always talk about boomers. I feel like I'm a boomer, so I defend them. It's like I defend our power. But I feel like the industry as a whole tends to kind of write off boomers a little bit more quickly than they should. This is Visa projects. So the consumers over 60 are going to continue to dominate US consumer spending growth in the coming decade. I just want you to look at the percent of between seniors, God, I'm a senior, not yet, almost. The net worth dollars and the share of total income dollars in the United States. When seniors move on, all of that money, which is trillions of dollars over the next decade, is going to go into boomer accounts. So it's just important not to alienate. There's been a lot of talk. There was something yesterday about smart technology here at the show. It was really interesting. We keep talking about smart technology, and smart is super important. Do not misunderstand me. But when you look at NPD data, boomers are not entirely comfortable with smart technology. On average, only 25% of boomers feel like they have to go out and buy a smart object tomorrow and add something within the year to their kitchen. It's important to understand that because we all think, Instant Pot. It's like the great example of smart technology. We're not buying Instant Pot because of the technology. The vast majority of us, myself included, don't even understand the technology. We're buying it because it delivers something we want. It delivers time. And the technology is that's just the plow, okay? So it's just important to understand that, seniors and boomers are still a very important part of the fiscal story here. So let's start with Gen Z. 11 to 22 years old. This picture is like, they're all talking to each other. How many Gen Z in the audience? Okay, good, we can talk smack about them. So they're all talking, they're outside. So I switched the picture because I was like, this is totally unreal. This is more what it looks like. No eye contact. I'm just being a jerk. So Gen Z, they're the most diverse generation, they're the most well-educated, and they're very self-educated. They're constantly self-educating. And I don't just mean, internet garbage. They will go out and learn. I've hired a few people who have taught themselves software programs in just a matter of days. They don't go to outside classes or evening learning necessarily. That's a longer road for them. They're image-driven. The number one thing Gen Z shoppers look for in the products they buy is aesthetics. Aesthetics is first. 24% of Gen Z are signed up for at least 10 retail email subscription services, and 36% check their emails once a day for those services. They work to be a part of their favorite brands. They're more likely than any other generation to seek out a positive conversation with retailers on social media. And that's interesting because boomers tend to drive more negative conversations. They're getting better about it. But boomers innately respond to, I don't want to say we're complainers. I want to say that we don't necessarily talk to brands unless we have to, because we see brands as something that's a little bit more cemented. And millennials and Gen X see brands as something that must evolve to be relevant to them. More Gen Z. So they may be the first generation where cooking is truly no longer a gendered task. They don't look at it as male, female. It's equally gendered to them according to Hartman surveys. They're not afraid of the kitchen. They're willing to be able to look up recipes. They're very, they'll use YouTube to figure out new ways to do things and shorter ways to do things and hacks. They really harken back to traditional family values, and their cooking skills are almost 20 or 18% better than millennials. Their basic cooking skills, which is interesting. It's great. Because this generation sees cooking as almost a craft. They see it as a skill, as something that they can, show off with. They're the first generation to be born into a world of technology, to be creative with both the left and right side of their brain. And they're socially responsible. They hold brands accountable for everything from environmental to social issues. The reason why that's important is that they look at brands as having a lot more power than the individual. So in other words, yes, I can recycle, and as a Gen Z or as any generation, I'm going to recycle because it's the responsible thing to do. But the amount of change that a brand can make by producing easily recyclable products in the first place or doing the right choices at the outset, much more important and much more essential than what I do, because they're affecting millions of people. They are growing up with voice assistants. This generation is surprisingly not very suspicious of voice assistants. So in other words, they will say, Amazon, put sugar on the shopping list. And they will just have Amazon buy the sugar that comes up first. And without necessarily saying, is that Domino's, or why are they giving me the sugar that they're giving me? They're driven by the convenience of it and the time that it delivers to them. So they're less suspicious than other generations about the sort of pre-decisions that are made by data-driven decisions by the machines that they use. On to millennials. So what's the need to know? Just interesting, this chart on the right. Percentage of consumers that used their smartphone to look up a product while in a shop. 50% of baby boomers, which is a big growth, because baby boomers didn't usually solve it one way or the other. You do all your research at home, or you would go and shop for it. Now they're about 50% of the doing the shop, and 77% of millennials. They are changing the norms of societal progression. So basically, millennials don't see boomers, Gen Xers tend to see a progression. I go to high school, I date, maybe cohabit, maybe I get married. There's a progression in our heads of what's the ideal. Millennials don't think like that. They jump back and forth between them and really don't see. They can imagine themselves stopping mid-career, taking a year to travel, and coming back to it. They're redefining mobility, you all know that. And they're actually expecting to stay longer in their first home than prior generations. A lot of that is because they imagine better homes. They imagine more flexible environments. They imagine kitchens that, when you ask a millennial, this is kind of a disturbing statistic actually, when you ask a millennial what rooms they eat in, you will see a lot more millennials eating in bedrooms, and you'll see a lot more millennials eating in living rooms, okay? The 11% of millennials actually eat in the bathroom. I don't even know what they're eating in there, it's disgusting, but but their concept of space is not what their parents' concept of space is, or what they were taught their concept of space is irreverent. And it is what I want it to be. So I can imagine any room as being where I do this. What's my favorite room to do this in, whatever this is. Netflix and chill. They prefer staying into going out. That phrase it kills me. They see retail as channel agnostic. In other words, they don't see loyalty as, they don't see a brand as a religion. In other words, they may love Kohl's today, but Kohl's is only as good as what they're going to show me tomorrow. So they really believe that you have to earn your stripes every day, so to speak, in any channel of retail, and that there should be completely seamless use through brick and mortar and through online. Millennials are bringing us the wellness kitchen, but they're also bringing us new concepts in the kitchen. Kitchen farming, which is being able to grow herbs in the kitchen, shelving that allows that as well, new ways to store food, smart appliances. If you haven't seen the Samsung Family Hub, Google it, take a look at the YouTube videos for this object. It's just amazing. She's standing in front of her refrigerator door, and the screen is large enough, it's large enough to literally sit with your family, to watch things together on television while you're cooking in the kitchen, to pull up we used to imagine counters where you could pull up, or we still think of having your iPad in front of you while you're making something. It's all on screen, on your fridge, and it's enormous. So it's large enough to be an entertainment center, large enough to share social experiences, to run a movie while you're having a cocktail party in the kitchen, all of those things. And of course, they're very omni-channel friendly. Let's look at Gen X. So they're sandwiched between boomers and millennials. They're entering their prime earning years. And it's important. People always think of Gen X as smaller because they're only a 10-year generation versus millennials and boomers, which are 20 years. But while they occupy about 13% of the population, they're 31% of discretionary spending in the United States right now. Do not ignore them. And they're very sensitive to certain things. They're very neighbor-oriented. They are the most, they do more price comparisons than any other generation. They have the most children in the house of any generation. And they're very safety-oriented as well because of that. So, average Gen X household spent $68,500 in 2016. They spend more on mortgage interest than any other generation. So they're still really strapped. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on this generation. Roughly half of them are supporting both a parent and a child at the same time. So that straps their discretionary income too. But they are at that peak earning years right now. So what's the need to know? First, latchkey kids. So they came of age in two-income families. They're very self-sufficient. Like I said, they do more research than anything else. They like to learn new skills, but they like to accomplish things on their own terms. In other words, they don't want to be pushed to buy a new product or do a new thing just because everybody else is doing it. They are really a true retail hybrid. They've embraced over the last 3 years online shopping very rapidly, more so than any other generation. And they're both cynical and sophisticated about products and ads. They're much more cynical than millennials are, surprisingly, about advertisements. And we talked at the beginning about being neighborly and things like that. When we say they're cynical, it's because they rely so heavily on consumer ratings and reviews. 98% of Gen X say that they trust consumer reviews more than any other source of information about new products that they're going to buy. And then, just we're talking about here about just living spaces. They've got the desire and the financial ability at this point to change the kitchens into true living spaces where at one time of the day, it's where you do homework. And at one time of the day, it's where you make a meal together. Baby boomers, my favorite. So, they're retiring. Really? I'm not. They're moving, they're remodeling their homes. Boomers right now are in a tremendous period of reinvention. They're in a period of personal reinvention. We've talked about it before. They're much more healthy than they expected to be. They're starting new lives, new careers, new relationships. The divorce rate among boomers continues to climb beyond every other generation. So now the divorce rate among boomers is higher even than first-year marrieds. They will, we talked about this before, they're going to inherit $15 trillion over a 20-year period through the 2030s as their parents pass on. They do prefer shopping in brick and mortar formats. Interestingly, and I think a lot of it says something about what retailers are doing, Gen Z is also showing a very strong proclivity for shopping at brick and mortar. So they're about 15% higher at the same age, 12% higher at the same age than millennials were likely to shop at a retail store versus online. So I was talking to somebody at Sphere Trending about this, and she was like, well, you know, they've got bikes. She's like, they're not shopping brick and mortar because they don't have a car. But I thought it was interesting. The age to age sort of pushes that out. Their quest is to be forever young, and you know, again, it's that cross influence. Everybody wants to be the youngest generation. Everybody wants to be the cool kid, right? So really, boomers are still looking to millennials and to Gen Z to see what they want to be. They have a greater interest in supportive solutions to improve everyday living. Just because the boomers' population is aging doesn't mean they're really slowing down. So one of the things that we see is this consistent interest in things that will keep me active, that will keep my energy up, things that will save me time so that I can do other things, so I can spend more time with family and more time with friends. They're focusing on their health, clean eating, leisure spending, and quality time with their families. A lot of boomer money is going towards leisure, towards experiences. And that's happening with every generation, but it's important that we make sure that we keep our categories experiential, because people aren't buying objects, they're buying experiences, and boomers are the number one response in terms of, I want new experiences. They're looking for a deal as they move to fixed incomes, so they're more likely to value product discounts. Just something interesting, this company called Habit, food personalized, basically, it basically takes the guesswork out of a science-based diet. You tell it very simply, you take a test. You get the results, and it tells you based on your answers, what you're eating now, what you should be eating, and makes it simple to order that. So it's sort of an all-in-one solution. It's an interesting site to visit. I love this picture of George Bush skydiving. They're remaining economically active. They're producing, they're consuming, they're paying taxes. 1 in 3 U.S. This is important. By 2035, 1 in 3 U.S. households versus 1 in 5 today will be headed by someone who's 65 or over. And science is bringing easier technology so that we can age in place, so that we can age healthfully, so that we can age actively. Multi-generational living is also shifting the housing market. So currently, 19% of households are multi-generation, which is very high. It was 3 years ago, it was at 14%. And then just rethinking the life course. So when you think of seniors, 75 and over, really think that they're still educating, they're still training, retraining themselves. They're working towards remaining flexible, remaining interdependent with younger generations. They're building strong relationships with their family because they're spending more time with them. Okay, so that's the generational thing. That's sort of your framework. When I started thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, one of the things that was that kept coming to my mind was there's if you look at the people who are successful today. So I had like a whole wall of like Post-its, and I said, what are the common threads? What are the common threads that we keep seeing of all the people that we would consider successful today, whether it's on a single project or a new business? And they actually pretty much accidentally all came up with these letters, FASTR. So we decided to put together a program called the FASTR program, and said if you focus on these FASTR tenets, and just a sort of aside, So I was struggling with this, and I had post-its all over the place. And I was saying to my husband, Bill, of 16 years, I was like, I love the idea, but all I keep coming up with, I'm trying to find an acronym, and all I keep coming up with is farts. So he was like, FASTR. I'm like, where's the E? He's like, that's what makes it faster. I was like, I stick with you for a reason. So, flexible. When we look at companies that are really doing well, and I guess as you go through this, you're gonna have all of this, so like, don't kill yourself, taking pictures or whatever, but when we look at companies that are really making an impression, they're flexible, So they have, they acknowledge that there's more competition, that there are new business models, that they are flexible across channels, and they're empowered by data. So they're not just guessing at things. Understand that we are, again, in an era of not digital consumption, but digital consumerism. So we're buying experiences, we're buying a lifestyle rather than just buying objects. And to give you an idea of some people who are, like somebody who I think is incredibly flexible, a couple of brands. IKEA. 2 years ago, IKEA, or rather Goodwill, and then the Salvation Army both announced that they would no longer take donations of IKEA products. Because while everybody wanted to donate it for the tax write-off, as soon as it got in the truck, it fell apart, you couldn't put it back together, and plus you had thrown out that like 57-page piece of paper that showed you how to put it together 10 years ago. So they were just like, we're not taking that anymore. The quality just isn't there. And IKEA was like, you know what? Maybe we're not that IKEA anymore. And what they did was now they're working with Adidas, they're working with NASA to create a new line of product that evolves and is so high quality that it has a 10-year evolution. So you can buy something that is a baby crib that will become a child's desk, that will become a college desk. But they're taking on what the consumer's saying and saying, we can be flexible. We can be brand related. We can work with great brands like Adidas as long as we are willing to change ourselves and become the brand that the consumer wants us to be. So since change is constant, companies that have structural flexibility are willing to balance their assortments, are willing to plan for changes that they see the consumers going through, are really going to be the winners. And moving from being reactive to being progressive. KitchenAid is another amazing brand this way. So 10 years ago, less, 5, I would have said KitchenAid was a boomer brand. The structure's there, strong, high-end, all of that. They just put out and I've got a link to it here, but you can just click on it and it'll run when you get it in the email. But their whole new celebration of their 100 years is about the creator. It's about the ethic of the creator in the kitchen and how it has made them who they are. And really, you see these young people cooking, and you're like, oh my gosh, they've completely retrenched. They're still relevant to boomers because boomers are creators in the kitchen too, but they've really created a new message around being, around who they want to serve. Just an example of another brand, Barcraft, which is a Lifetime Brands brand, but what I love about the brand is that it's not just, there are functional objects, so if you like to make cocktails and you want bar product, you can do that. The other brand for them is RBT, which is probably a better example. You can see them at Target, but you have things that are for these sort of the essential, the person who's buying for themselves. You have products that is for a gift, and that also products that help you create entertaining experiences. So it really hits a product on all levels that a consumer would want to hit it on, not just here's a cocktail shaker. Other brands, being flexible is about seeing brands as friends, seeing them as somebody that you can call up and say, the shoe was everything that you said it was going to be, but I still hate it. So, send it back, it's fine. The other F is for fun. One of the things that we're seeing now is everybody wants fun. So you're seeing everything from Skittles and that disgusting Skittlepox commercial to people like Waver who are doing genuinely entertaining commercials. I mean, they're really funny to watch. To, of course, the Geico people. The insurance industry has gone after fun in a big way. Fun is great for a couple of reasons. First, because if you can take yourself not so seriously, the only people who can really take themselves not seriously and have a little fun is people who really know what they're doing. So it sends a message of self-confidence to do that. But these will all have links. You can just click on them when you get it and see. Being fun also means creating experiences. In other words, helping people acquire skills like sur la table classes on how to help you, make pasta, or Nordstrom having Bollyworks fitness classes. Never see me there. Being fearless. Fearless is, it's interesting. It's easy to talk about fearlessness because it sounds like, oh, it's so easy, sure, I'll be fearless. But we see brands like Dyson who have said, okay, look, we're just going to deliver the absolute best. And it's going to be, we're going to deliver the best technology, we're going to deliver the best product we can, and it's going to provide a solution, and it's going to be focused. So it's not the broad swipe that I think a lot of brands have done in the past. Some of the people who we think are fearless, Chefin, they're not afraid to reimagine a simple, more convenient, real way of making a cheese grater. Or when you look at Aldi has to. One of the things that's great about Aldi is they're so focused. It's like the assortment's not super broad. They're bringing you curated things that they think are terrific values, and that's what they're going to do. Dyson Innovation, Patagonia's positioning on new materials and tech fibers. Let's go to A. So when we look at A. A for me, the three top things were being addictive. I think that one of the things that's really difficult is that we're constantly wanting to see something new, right? So what makes something addictive? I've brought up this store called Story, and something interesting happened this year. Any of you been to a store called Story in New York? Yeah, it's amazing. So the idea behind Story, this woman, brilliant woman named Rachel Sheckman, and she said, I'm just so sick of seeing the same thing all the time. And I can open a store, but the consumer's going to think they figured it out in like 3 months, and then traffic's going to stop coming. So what she did was she created a store called Story. And Story opens for 3 to 4 weeks, shuts down for 2 weeks, and opens up as a new story. So it'll be Love Story. If you want to go see it online, you can go to thisisstory.com. So it'll be Love Story, and she'll populate the store with both local artists, with mass brands as well. And Love Story might have everything from essential oils to massagers to books of love poems, and that might happen like around, say, Valentine's Day. Then she'll do Cleaning Story, and it'll be like everything to do with all different kinds of cleaning, everything from vacuums to great cleaning products, very well curated. So after about 1.5 years, Macy's just bought Story and hired her as their chief experience officer. But it's because they want to create that. So this idea of being addictive is very important because, like we said before, you're only as good as your next great idea. American adults spend over 11 hours a day listening to, watching, reading, or generally interacting with all media, according to last year's Nielsen reports. If you look here at the graph, you'll see, how much the light blue is live TV, the purple is radio, the bright green is TV connected devices, and the other big one, the orange one, is app and web smartphone usage. Being addictive is about being the one that people go to when they make those choices, because it's a tremendous amount of media. So, how do you float to the top? And it's going to be by staying different. BuzzFeed, you've all heard about BuzzFeed, especially recently. but they opened, I don't want to say a store, they opened an experience place called Camp. And it's a retail location in New York City where you can find toys and games and books, and it's just an experience that you just go to and you experience it. You can also, of course, purchase there. The other part of A is being aware. And aware is, it's a lot of time when people say, people will say, what's the one thing that I can do? What's the one thing that I can do to stay on top of, to stay in business? And I always say, be aware, and they always look at me like, that's just insulting. Like, I'm an idiot, I'm not gonna stay aware. But there's a tremendous amount to keep up with. So, and these are just some of them. And this is just the trend side, okay? So we can look at fashion, you can look at what are exciting retailers doing. If you're going to stay abreast, understand that you're going up against a consumer that is more self-educated than any consumer we've ever known. They're spending 11 hours a day exploring exciting new retail things. So you've got to be a self-educator. You've got to be a culture vulture if you're going to keep up with it. It's just that, or assign somebody. I had a great girl that I worked with. She quit, but she was terrific. She would come in every day and say, I saw this, this, and this. And she was like my vulture because I didn't have the time to do it. But assign somebody to be for your business, the one who keeps an eye on what's hot and what's not. It's such an easy thing, and it really builds their confidence, and it helps them, educate everybody else and really keeps everybody abreast of things. It's amazing to me to think that even big companies who are supposed to be completely aware make horrible mistakes. Bloomingdale's ad from 2017. Spike your best friend's eggnog when they're not looking. It's like, what? And then the Katy Perry's African mask. You saw the whole Prada thing this year in New York, where they had to take some racist representations out of their windows. It's so easy to go off that I tend to say when we're aware, I really like to stay towards something that is much more inclusive. And there's so much great inclusive marketing going on. There's some great examples here. When you get this, there's a link in the notes section that will take you to 3 articles from Forbes, Hartman, and somebody else that will take you through the best inclusive marketing campaigns. Stay positive. It's so easy to stay positive. And there are so many great diverse positions right now. 70% of millennials are more likely to choose a brand over another brand if they demonstrate inclusion and diversity in the promotions, in terms of the promotions it offers. Another part of the A for me is aspirational. So, when we look at, I really believe that today's consumer, they don't dream of owning, they dream of becoming. They want brands that can tell them who they can be. That can show them who they can be, what they can learn, how they can evolve, no matter what age they are. And so we've got to stop telling people who we are and start telling them that we're engaged in helping them figure out who they are. That's what aspiration's about. 88% of consumers want to engage with brands that are setting new standards. I don't know if you know this woman. Her name is escaping me right now, but really brilliant. And she came down. I mean, she's a little kooky. Simple philosophy, that is so engaging. If it doesn't make you happy, get rid of it. And which translates to get rid of it and make room for more, really. But these are people who are sending great aspirational messages. I thought this was interesting. Hostess did a poll with one poll, basically found out that millennials are judgy and that they decide within 20 minutes whether or not you're a good host, based on whether or not you serve them a drink, which you have to have a drink in their hand within 8 minutes, and for me it's like 5, and you have to have a snack in their hand within 10 minutes, I think. So let's move to S. S is an important one. surprising. Surprising to me, it's sort of part of addictive. But again, this is just another look at IKEA really quickly. IKEA's partnerships with NASA, with Sonos. When they committed to like being the new IKEA, they really committed. And so you really see, but they still are serving the same customer, but they're serving them better and they're serving them in new ways. And they've created sort of an in-house hub for novel thinking. And they just open the door to companies that they love and figure out later what you're gonna do. But let's talk to people we think are great. Nike, another example. I'm just gonna start moving a little faster. Subscription e-commerce. Subscription e-commerce is really, really important. 100% year increase over the past 5 years. Do any of you, like, show of hands, who subscribes to anything subscription-wise? BarkBox or any of that? Tell me some of the things you subscribe to. Okay. Anybody else? It's amazing. Like, I mean, the Amazon stuff, the everyday stuff is great, but some of the new subscription services that are really hopping now are the ones that bring a surprise into your life. Like BarkBox, $25 a month, and I have 3 greyhounds, and they just go ballistic. Like, they'll say BarkBox, and then just like the whole house is torn apart. But it's that excitement, it's that addiction to just, $25 a month for that kind of happiness, I'll pay it. Be shareable. Okay, so shareable is something you've been hearing for a long time. We talk about it a lot. It's very important. The important thing to realize about shareable is that shareable has evolved in a very important way over the past couple of years. That is that, yes, we look at what's shareable online, but we're seeing sort of a bifurcation. There's digital sharing, which is what we're used to talking about, creating things that I can share. I'm gonna make this and I'm gonna show it to you online. But what we're really seeing being driven by both millennials and Gen Z is physical sharing, IRL sharing in real life. And this idea of creating experiences through products where we're going back to baking cookies with your kids, creating something as a family in the kitchen, doing something in the yard. These in real life experiences are the new aspiration because they're real. They're not just me making a perfect cupcake and showing you how fabulous I am in my kitchen, but it's look at the true social experiences I'm having. Social experiences are aspirational again. So ask yourself what kind of products and services you're offering that enable those. And then this is just interesting information to have, just sort of social media marketers, platform usage trends. So what you see in green is the percentage planning to increase organic activity in the next year. What you see in pink is the percentage not planning to utilize the platform in the next year. So we also be simple. So this sounds almost counterintuitive. I wanted to put simple up here because I kept seeing this idea of these people who were just focused on a single great thing. Whether it was Warby Parker saying, you know what, there's great resource for eyeglasses. All we're gonna do is great fashionable eyeglasses with an affordable price point. Same thing with WeWork, creating WeWork spaces. And WeWork's come up a lot lately because they are actually, they're a tremendous outlet for, they've created shops inside of their work facilities. And so there are people, and they're curated locally, so it gives people a chance to sell new products in there. But Instant Pot is a great example of something that's just a simple, solution-driven product. This, again, just talks about the importance of simplicity to consumers. Let's get past it because we're almost out of time. Instead of big claims, sometimes it's about little obsessions. So 94% of people say easy navigation is the most important website feature. And because sometimes we get complicated because we want to offer so much, 50% of website users will leave a website permanently if the content is not relevant, not irrelevant. double negative. 67% of people think website links with links to the company's social media account are extremely or somewhat useful. Again, that's just what's your position. T, trustworthy. Consumer trust is at an all-time low, and I won't. The Edelman Trust Survey is attached to this. It's fascinating. It talks about who do Americans trust. 42%, only 42% of Americans trust mass media. Only 33% trust government, and only 48% of Americans trust business. That's down 10% from 2017. Who do Americans trust? Americans trust each other. It's the one thing that's gone up. So again, ratings and reviews are super, super important. But it's just interesting to see when you're trying to get trust in your product, this is where you need to look to see what people trust and why. A really interesting survey. I thought this was just too funny. So JP Morgan had like that whole, hubbub. And so they started this thing where they said, we're gonna be open, ask us the questions you wanna ask us. And one of the first posts was this guy saying, quick, you're in a room with no key, no chair, 2 paper clips and a light bulb. How do you defraud investors? And JP Morgan said, tomorrow's Q&A is canceled, it's a bad idea. But it's good to open yourself up, just be prepared for what you're gonna get. Transparency is also about where ingredients come from, where labor comes from. To Gen X and Gen Z, very, very important. Transparency is of course about ingredients and the origin of that. And then the topics that demonstrate a brand's transparency on social media to consumers. Number one is admitting mistakes. 61% of consumers say admitting mistakes is the most important thing. 58% say honest responses to customer questions. 45% say product, service, and pricing. 43% say manufacturing practices, which Americans didn't really used to care about that much. So just important to understand that's a part of it. Transparency in materials. Percent who agreed that they would pay more for eco-friendly products. 58% of Gen Z. 61% of millennials. So we're starting to see a big even out. I mean, you've studied that a lot, but we're starting to see things even out across generations about what the true value add is for transparency. I loved this. People will say, people have different opinions of Amazon, I'm sure, but being true. So to me, just being true with who you consider your customer is most important. Being true with your customer, being true with your employee. And I really liked what Amazon had as their culture of innovation. Customer obsession was their number one thing. Start every process with a customer and work backwards. I love that. It's so simple. Do they execute? I don't know, but I love the ethic. Long-term thinking, be stubborn on the vision, but be flexible on the details. So just look through it. It's inspiring, honestly. Like they're all bumper stickers. We wanted to say, I wanted to just sort of give you, when we look up company culture to me, it's like, I always think when people say company culture, they're thinking about a big company, To me, the company culture of a 7-employee store is just as important as anything else. These are the companies that have the #1 company culture ratings. There's an article attached to it that says why. It's really fascinating to see what employees value now, because employee engagement is super important. America's Best Large Employers is also up here, and you'll see all the data on that. That's from Forbes and Statista. Costco is #1, Google #2, REI #3, Memorial Hermann's Health Services. The United States Automobile Association. And then finally, ARM. So, real world. To me, being real world is just about keep looking at how people, sometimes I feel like it's very easy in house for us to iterate. And we just need to look at what problems are people having. If I want a cutting board that is gonna hold my tablet, it's such a simple solution. But really looking at real world problems and how you're going to solve them for the people who are living them. So look in your own backyard. Reasons consumers shop online instead of in stores. If we hear so many people complaining constantly about people not coming in store, well, these are the reasons why. So take a look at them, and it's very educational. Being responsible. Cost-related marketing. more and more important, a couple of companies that I love that really are looking at things differently. Chavez for Charity is a company run by a woman who just said, you know what, I just want a single product, like just bracelets. Each bracelet or each set of 10 goes to a different charity. This company, Tis Best, just fascinating. So the idea is you buy a gift card, basically, but 100% of it goes to the business that you buy it for. So let's say I bought a UNICEF gift card. I give you a card, but 100% of that is going to UNICEF. There's no product involved. It's strictly me. You get to choose the charity that you choose. But the idea of 100% of a card going to something and no product being involved at all is really an interesting marketing idea. And then finally, sustainability as a part of responsibility. And that's kind of where we are. So if you have any questions, please feel free to come up. I'll give you my card. And if you have any needs for data or any of that, any follow-up, I'm happy to give it to you. So thank you for coming so early and for spending the morning.